What's up, Steelers Nation? Welcome back to the channel, where we dive into everything black and gold. Before we jump into today's absolutely huge news, I just want to say, as always, this team is working day in and day out to improve, to get better, and to bring that next Lombardi trophy back to Pittsburgh. And here on this channel, we're all about keeping you in the loop on every move that gets us closer to that goal. So if you love the Steelers, if you live and breathe black and gold like I do, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, so you don't miss any breaking news or analysis. Smash that notification bell too, because trust me, today's news is something every Steelers fan needs to hear. Let's get into it. All right, Steelers Nation. We've got massive breaking news coming out of Cleveland that directly impacts our Pittsburgh Steelers. And yes, it has everything to do with our old friend Myles Garrett. Now, if you've been following the offseason drama, you know there were rumblings that Myles Garrett, former Defensive Player of the Year, was unhappy in Cleveland. Some folks were speculating, hey, maybe he's on the way out. Maybe the AFC North gets a little easier. And I know a lot of us were thinking, maybe, just maybe, the Steelers wouldn't have to deal with him twice a year anymore. But folks, that dream is officially over. Today, it was confirmed that Myles Garrett and the Browns have agreed to a monster 4-year contract extension worth $40 million per year, with $123 million guaranteed. Let me say that again, $40 million per year, making him the highest-paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Yeah, let that sink in for a second, Steelers Nation. So what does this mean for us in Pittsburgh? Well, let me break it down, because this deal has two major impacts for the Steelers, and neither of them is small. First off, Myles Garrett is staying in the division for a long time. This means the Browns' defense, which has always been a thorn in the Steelers' side, is still fully loaded. Let's not kid ourselves. Garrett has been a game wrecker. He's disrupted games, ruined offensive game plans, and been a menace for our quarterbacks every time we face him. Just when we thought the AFC North might open up a little, especially with Lamar Jackson battling injuries and the Bengals managing Joe Burrow's health, we now know the Browns' defense is here to stay, and Garrett is its anchor. So our offensive line, whether it's led by Dan Moore Jr. or Broderick Jones or whoever else, has their work cut out for them. Not just this season, but for years to come. If we want to win this division, we have to find a way to neutralize Myles Garrett, plain and simple. Now, Steelers Nation, the second part of this news hits even closer to home. Because with Garrett's new deal, you better believe TJ Watt is watching. If Garrett is now making $40 million a year, what do you think TJ Watt, our own Defensive Player of the Year, is going to ask for? Right now, Watt is entering the final year of his contract, and negotiations are reportedly already underway. Here's where it gets tricky. Before today, Max Crosby's deal at $35.5 million per year was the benchmark. Now that's been completely reset. Garrett has set the bar to $40 million. And look, if you know anything about Watt, and you know anything about J. Watt, you know they're a prideful family and they know their worth. J. Watt has already made it clear there will be no hometown discount, and I can't blame them. TJ Watt has earned every penny of what he's about to get. But here's the thing. The Steelers already have the highest paid defense in the NFL. Add in the fact that we don't even know who our starting quarterback will be next season, and suddenly this contract negotiation with Watt just became a whole lot harder. Can we pay Watt $40 million and still build a competitive roster? Or does this force the Steelers into some very difficult decisions? I'm telling you, Steelers Nation, this is the kind of ripple effect that changes everything for a franchise. And don't be surprised if this delays Watt's deal or complicates free agency plans. It could even impact what we do at quarterback, because that's a lot of money tied up on one side of the ball. And speaking of free agency, let's pivot a bit, because the Steelers are expected to be active on both sides of the ball. On defense, with Dante Jackson likely gone, the Steelers are reportedly eyeing a major cornerback signing. Names like Byron Murphy, Charvarius Ward, and DJ Reed are being thrown around. And let me tell you, any of those guys would be a game changer for our secondary. especially when you're facing guys like Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Amari Cooper, and now, still, Myles Garrett pressuring our quarterback every snap. We need to lock down that secondary, and if we land one of these corners, it could be one of the biggest defensive signings of the offseason. On offense, the Jaguars just made a wide receiver available, and while it's not Christian Kirk, it's a guy who could add some much-needed depth next to George Pickens. Because let's face it, we can't go into next season with just Pickens and a bunch of question marks. Our receiving core needs help, especially if we bring in a young quarterback or someone like Russell Wilson or Justin Fields to start next season. All right, folks, let's get right into it because the Steelers' plans for the running back position in 2025 are starting to become much clearer, and there are some big decisions coming that could change the entire identity of this offense. So here's the situation. Najee Harris is officially a free agent. Jaylen Warren is a restricted free agent. And according to multiple insiders, including Mark Kaboly, the Steelers are not expected to keep both of them. Now, let that sink in. Because for some Steelers fans, including myself, it's hard to imagine a backfield without Najee Harris. But all signs are pointing to Najee heading somewhere else this offseason. Now let's talk about Najee for a second. Najee Harris was a first-round pick in 2021, pick number 24 overall, and right away, expectations were sky high. And to his credit, Najee delivered in many ways, over 1,000 rushing yards in every single season. Never missed a game in 4 years, showing incredible durability. Played behind some of the worst offensive lines we've seen in Pittsburgh in decades, and still put up numbers. So let's give him his flowers. Najee has been a workhorse, a true Steeler. But here's the tough part. Steelers Nation. Production is what matters most in the NFL, and while Najee was solid, he didn't become that game-changing back we were all hoping for when we took him in round 1. Add to that, a stagnant offense under Matt Canada for years, and even with Arthur Smith coming in as the new offensive coordinator, the run game still didn't live up to expectations in 2024. So what's the verdict from inside the Steelers' front office? Well, according to Kaboly and other reports, Najee Harris is expected to sign elsewhere. The Steelers will tender Jaylen Warren to return. Pittsburgh will draft a running back and likely sign a veteran in free agency. All right, now let's talk about Jaylen Warren, because a lot of fans are probably wondering if Najee's gone, can Warren handle RB1 duties? And here's where it gets interesting. Jaylen Warren has looked more explosive than Najee in many games. He brings that burst and pass-catching ability we haven't consistently seen from Harris. And the best part? He's cheaper, a restricted free agent, meaning we can bring him back on a reasonable deal. But even so, the plan isn't for Warren to be the lone feature back. The expectation is that he'll be part of a committee, which brings us to our next big point. The Steelers are expected to draft a running back in the 2025 NFL Draft, and this year's class, stacked with talent. Guys like Tre'Veyon Henderson, Ohio State, Braylon Allen, Wisconsin, Will Shipley, Clemson. There's a real chance that day 2 or day 3 of the draft could net us a high upside back, younger, cheaper, and with far less mileage than Najee Harris. And don't forget, adding a veteran in free agency is also on the table. Think of someone who can mentor a rookie while still contributing meaningful snaps. The names are unclear right now, but it's clear the Steelers want a versatile room and not just ride one guy like they did with Najee. So Steelers Nation, get ready for a new-look backfield in 2025. Now here's the real question. Why are the Steelers moving in this direction? Why not keep Najee if he's been reliable? Because at the end of the day, the running game hasn't worked. In 2024, Arthur Smith was brought in to revive the offense and reestablish the run, and yet, no consistent production. Too many negative plays and stuffed runs. Offensive line still not dominant at the point of attack. And while Najee took a lot of heat, this is bigger than one player. It's a systemic problem that requires new personnel, new strategy, and a fresh start. Head coach Mike Tomlin wants to run the ball. That's in his DNA. But to do it effectively, the Steelers need fresh legs, more explosiveness, and backs that fit what Arthur Smith wants to do. That's why letting Najee walk and rebuilding. The position makes sense even if it's tough to say goodbye to a player who gave it his all. So, what does all this mean for our Steelers? Myles Garrett isn't going anywhere, and our offensive line is going to need reinforcements to keep up. 2. T.J. Watt's next contract just got a whole lot more expensive, and that means big decisions for Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin. And free agency? Expect Pittsburgh to make serious moves, both at cornerback and wide receiver, to stay competitive, in what is quickly becoming one of the toughest divisions in football. But now, I want to hear from you, Steelers Nation. What do you think of Myles Garrett's massive deal? Should the Steelers match that number for T.J. Watt, or let him walk? And who would you like to see Pittsburgh sign in free agency? Let me know down in the comments. I'm reading everything. You guys post, and I'll feature some of your best takes in the next video. All right, that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want to stay on top of all Steelers news, especially with free agency heating up, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a moment. Steelers Nation, this offseason is just getting started, and you know we'll be here for every twist and turn. Until next time, here we go, Steelers, here we go.